Welcome back into the Daily Dose. I'm Jeff Hansen. The show's brought to you by Give'emHellBrigham.com and by CougarSportsInsider.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Check out either of those resources for more in-depth analysis and conversation about the BYU football team and BYU athletics as a whole. That's Give'emHellBrigham.com and CougarSportsInsider.com, again, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. We're knocking on the door of 3,500 subscribers. Thank you guys for subscribing to the channel, for supporting what we do over here at the Daily Dose. Y'all are the best. Please continue your support. Continue to fuel that algorithm. It means the world to me. A big game coming up on Saturday, BYU and Kansas. Both teams are 3-0, and maybe for BYU, certainly surprisingly 3-0, and maybe Kansas a little bit as well. I think they had higher expectations coming into the season, so maybe nobody's surprised that they beat Illinois. They beat Nevada, but when you watch the game against Nevada, that was, that could have gone either way there in the fourth quarter. So happy to be 3-0. Big game, two good teams, two well-coached teams, and two teams that have improved. When you look at Kansas's offense and Kansas's defense, especially last year, Kansas's offense, elite. Whether it was Justin Bean, whether it was Jalen Daniels, elite. Devin Neal, the whole offense, fantastic offense. When you looked at their defense a year ago, awful. Awful. BYU fans can relate to that, right? BYU had a pretty effective offense and a pretty abysmal defense as well. So a lot of similarities in those two teams. Kansas so far this year, the defense, at least in your traditional box score measures, look a lot better. Allowing 272 yards per game, that's 21st in the country. Allowing just over 21 points per game, that's 59th in the country. That's a huge step forward for the Kansas defense. But are they back? Are they good? The advanced metrics aren't quite there. Somehow, the Kansas defense, despite 272 yards per game and 21 points per game, the Kansas defense is ranked 117th in defensive FEI. So let's get into the advanced metrics here, because this is where BYU really has an opportunity. That Jayhawk offense, no matter who's playing quarterback, they're fantastic. They're going to get theirs. BYU is going to have a good defense, but they're going to get theirs on Kansas. I mean, that Kansas is good enough offense that they'll beat good defense at least a few times throughout the game, for sure. That offense is that good. But the defense, that's where BYU is going to have some opportunity. So let's look at this. Again, 117th, the defensive FEI. So let's break out some of the advanced metrics that kind of explain how they can go from 27th in yards per game, 21st in yards per game, down to 117th in FEI. Kansas is allowing 2.35 points per drive. That's 86th in the country. They have a touchdown allowed rate of 30%, meaning 30% of the times that their opponent gets the ball, they're going out and scoring touchdowns. That's 88th in the country. They're not getting off the field quickly. They have a 5% broken drive rate. If you think of broken drive, what does that mean? That's any drive that ends in 0 or negative yards, basically forcing a quick 3 and out. 5% broken drive rate, that's 105th in the country. And they're allowing, my favorite stat, you guys know, available yards. They're allowing 44.6% of available yards to be gained. So when you look a little bit beyond the box score, a little bit beyond the total yards gained and points on the scoreboard, there's some fractures in the foundation of this Kansas defense. And when you factor in that they aren't really playing offensive juggernauts, Illinois is number 73 in offensive FEI, and Nevada is number 120 in offensive FEI. So they're not playing good offenses, and they're still allowing those advanced metrics to kind of say what they're saying. Maybe this Kansas defense isn't as fixed as you'd think on the surface. That's great. Just to compare, here's where BYU's defense is, so you can get an idea of the progression from year to year, because BYU was abysmal a year ago, but now the Cougars, 59th in defensive FEI, they're giving up less than a point per drive, 0.86 points per drive. That's 8th in the country. They have a 10.7% touchdown rate. That's 17th in the country. A 14.3% broken drive rate. You think about that. BYU's doing a great job of getting teams behind the chains, forcing them off the field quickly. 14.3% broken drive rate. That's 41st in the country. And available yards, they're only allowing 27.6% of available yards to be gained. That's 7th in the country. So when you look at the foundation of BYU's defense, you could make an argument that they're going to take off, that they're performing even better than their traditional box score metrics would have you believe. So there's an opportunity for BYU's offense. That's good news, right? Well, the BYU offense, folks, it isn't quite what we're used to seeing in Provo. Let's look at some of the offensive metrics to see how they kind of match up with that Kansas defense, with the Kansas defensive metrics. Is BYU going to be able to take advantage of these weaknesses, what appear to be weaknesses in the Kansas defense? Well, here we go. The offense overall, 45th in offensive FEI. They're a fairly efficient offense. I mean, that's a good metric for BYU. 1.86 points per drive, 74th in the country. Not fantastic. 25% touchdown rate. That's 58th in the country. That's pretty solid for BYU. Average. They are kind of feast or famine. They're either scoring touchdowns or it's a 3 and out. And Keaton Slovis and the offense are getting off the field. A 17, almost an astounding 17.9% broken drive rate, meaning BYU is gaining 0 or negative yards 17.9% of the time. That's not going to get it done. I don't care who you are. That's not going to get it done. That's 108th in the country. And finally, again, my favorite metric, remove all the garbage time. BYU is gaining just 29.1% of available yards. That's 123rd in the country. So BYU's offense looks like there's an opportunity to attack this Kansas defense. I see the improvement from Kansas, but when you look beyond what you see just in the box scores, maybe they haven't improved as quickly as it looks on the surface. BYU's offense will have an opportunity to score, but can BYU's offense capitalize on that opportunity? So far, we're 3 games into the season, and I don't know that we know. There was some real progress in week 3. Keaton Slovis, he didn't look great, but he was efficient. He's still protecting the ball. The Arkansas defensive line, very, very good. Among the best that BYU is going to see throughout the year. And while the offensive rushing attack for BYU, LJ Martin and the running backs, it wasn't great. I mean, it was about 3 yards per carry. They showed enough burst at times that the Razorbacks had to take that offense seriously. It was a threat. They couldn't just sit back and say, okay, Keaton Slovis, beat us with your arm because we know the running backs aren't going to do anything. The running game was good enough that Arkansas had to take it seriously. And that's improvement from where BYU was in week 1 and week 2. So maybe they continue to improve. We saw Caleb Etienne. He got pulled out of the right tackle spot. Braden Kime played a lot of the snaps in the second half. Maybe that's a sign of things to come. I think that would help BYU's rushing attack if that move was made permanent. So I think there's signs of life for the BYU offense. But so far, through 3 games, you're still just looking at signs of life. You're not looking at a well-oiled, ready-to-roll offensive machine. But the opportunity is there against Kansas. There's no question about it. The sun is coming up. It's in my face now. My goodness. There is opportunity for BYU to gain yards, to put up points against this Kansas defense. I don't think the Jayhawk defense is as fixed as it appears through 3 games. They're playing well, but they're playing bad offenses. BYU has also been a pretty bad offense so far this year. Can they turn it around? Do you believe they have the pieces in place? And how much do you trust Aaron Roderick? That Aaron Roderick's offense of the past 3-4 years is going to come back and manifest itself eventually. A lot of BYU fans think that's coming this week. I don't know. We'll have to see. But I think there's an opportunity there. If BYU's offense struggles against Kansas's defense this week, then it could be a long rest of the season for the Cougar offense. Appreciate you guys coming in, spending some time with me here at the Daily Dose. Until next time, give them hell.